Welcome back to another video, guys, and today we're going to be doing Netherlands versus Belgium. Historically, the Netherlands have been okay with Belgium. They have once owned most of Belgium in the Dutch Empire when they owned the Dutch East Indies, now known as Indonesia. The Dutch also own some overseas territory. For example, they still have some useless islands over here that they have a few navy bases on. Historically, Belgium has also been pretty powerful, I guess. I mean, it's been destroyed in a lot of wars, like the 7 Years' War, the 100 Years' War, World War II, World War I. A lot of wars Belgium's been beat up in, but today, it's quite strong for European powers. As far as they go, of course. So Belgium has 47,000 total manpower, with 29,000 of them being trained, very close to 30,000. So they are a pretty buffed place in terms of manpower for their size. It's mostly flat, just like the Dutch. It has 72 ships, which is a pretty good size, but when you consider they only have 31 good ships, that's kind of sad, because that's not a lot, considering that this could be a huge naval war, considering that most of the Dutch's power relies on their water things, like this area or this area. Most of their economy is based on that, and the Belgians could shut that down if they were to go in a naval war with them, and they would need a good navy for that, which they don't really have. They also have a pretty bad air force, but it's okay. Mostly bombers. They have 23 aircraft, with 12 of them being good. Out of the 12, 7 of them are bombers. The other are U.S. Jets, fighters. 47 tanks, with 27 of them being good. The reason why tanks are so important in such a war is because, frankly, this could be a big tank battle, not just a naval battle, considering that it's such flat land that tanks would be widespread in a battle, and it would definitely change the battlefield in terms of just fighting. I mean, it can easily destroy places and be pretty effective on the battlefield, and Belgium is stronger in terms of tank field, which is really nice. It's also smaller than the Netherlands, with 30,000 square kilometers, which is about 11,000 smaller than the Netherlands. Now we're going to move on to the Netherlands. It is 32,000 manpower, 25,000 of them being trained, which is quite a lot less than Belgium, and it's actually not that decent for the Netherlands' size. The Netherlands is mostly flat. It's in Europe. It's known as I forgot. In Europe. It's known as something related to flat. It has 92 ships, with 56 of them being good, which is a very good navy, comparable to naval powers such as Denmark, Norway, or the United Kingdom. A very good navy. It has 42 aircraft, 17 of them being good, which is a teeny bit more than Belgium, but most of them are pretty outdated and don't have a lot of things like the Belgians do. They have 20 tanks, with only 10 of them being good. That would be horrible on the battlefield. Frankly, the Netherlands wouldn't stand a chance in tank battles with such a little thing. They have a pretty good size, though. So, now we go on to the question, who would win, really? I mean, the Belgians, they're pretty strong. In fact, the Belgians once owned the entirety of the DRC in Africa, and they're the only reason why the DRC isn't landlocked. As you can see right there, I mean, they negotiated for that land for the DRC whenever they were giving it up. But, so this would be a huge naval battle. All naval battles, Netherlands would most likely win, meaning it can easily defend its main economy and its coast. Belgium doesn't so heavily rely on the sea at all. It's more of just an economy based on factories and industrialization. Another thing that the Belgians could probably do is, most likely, because of how organized their army is, it could defeat the Netherlands in a number of battles that would be pretty important for, like battles of the Battle of Hulst, the Battle of Axel, the Battle of Oostburg. Those are pretty important cities for the Dutch that could easily be overrun if the Belgians use the full might of their organized armies. And the Dutch aren't that organized, but they still have a good number, and if the Dutch could take out Antwerp, they take out a lot of the Belgian economy, which is highly based on industrialization, which is mainly in Antwerp. So I think the Belgians stand a pretty good chance here, but we also have to consider the fact that the Dutch have quite a better air force. They're just lacking some technological things, and the Dutch have the money and the expertise to fix that early in the war. They can easily surpass the Belgians early on with their air force, which could be used to wipe out tanks in the use of bombers. Even though the Dutch don't have many bombers, they can produce them, even though it would cost a lot for the Dutch. Another thing we have to consider is the proximity of important cities. In terms of just chances of economies being ruined, pretty sure Belgium has the biggest chance of being ruined. The Dutch have already some IRL bases set right here, a little bit right here, some right here. They don't have any set right here, though, for some reason, as I discovered. Most of them are set over here, where most of their economy is. But I'm pretty sure that if the Dutch were to use their full might, they can easily overrun Antwerp, which would cripple the Belgian industrialized economy. It can also cripple other areas that the Belgians really need, like Liege, Liege and Ghent, which are also pretty important. Not as important as Antwerp, but still are. I think the Belgians also have to consider the fact that they couldn't hold on Dutch territory for too long, because the Dutch could easily overrun their tank plants and stuff like that with their aircraft, which ultimately means that the Belgians wouldn't be able to hold on to the Dutch forever, and they need to sort of blitzkrieg this, if you want to put it like that. They would need to quickly take out the Dutch if they did want to win such a war, because the Dutch could surpass them easily in technology and could bomb their tanks and their men with the aircraft, which would be pretty costly for the Dutch, but also for the Belgians. Keeping that in mind, I think the Belgium would be easy to overrun, but would defend very harshly. If the Dutch were to be the starters of the war, I think Belgium would have a quick reaction and would quickly push the Dutch back, potentially even surprising the Dutch, because of how organized their army is. It would potentially push the Dutch possibly all the way to Rotterdam before they can get a hold of themselves. Keeping in mind the fact that most of the Dutch armies are located in Amsterdam, they would have to travel a decent area in order to get to the Belgian armies. And even that, I mean, the Dutch aren't that powerful. But, yeah, I mean, the real question is who would win, and it's kind of just like our last episode on Greece and Turkey, which has done pretty well. I'm saying, like, Belgium has a good chance, but as well as the Netherlands. The Netherlands can cripple the Belgian economy faster than the Belgians can hurt the Dutch, but the Dutch are more vulnerable in terms of, like, just pushing back. If they lose, if they lose some of these coastal areas, which the Belgians can overrun just by land invasions, they might have some trouble with this. But if they can overrun these places, quite a big portion of the Dutch economy would be ruined, and if they can push all the way to Amsterdam, that would be significant. But that's all in just, like, if the Dutch could be able to get rid of them so quickly. We also have to consider the allies of these two nations if they were to get into war. Who would help? Most likely the Germans would help the Netherlands, and if the French and the British wanted, they would probably help the Belgians, but that's only a theoretical possibility, as they are in the EU, the UN, even NATO, and they wouldn't really attack each other. This is kind of an impossible war, but we're still going to say if it happened, because it's interesting. But just in the end, I'm going to have to say it would be a Dutch victory, because the Dutch can overrun the Belgian economy, which could quickly cripple them. If they can take out Brussels, the Belgian capital, that can quickly end in a Dutch victory, which the Dutch would have a chance of.